written production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.
Please stand and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to our board meeting today. I am Sue Wilson, President of the 2021 Board of Directors. During this meeting, we request everyone please turn off their cell phones or put them in vibrate mode. Effective January 2017, we started taping our board meetings, and by entering this room and or participating in the meeting, you are hereby granting permission to the RCSC to record and use on video and audio tape your image, likeness, and voice. You are also waiving any claims that you may have against the RCSC for using your image, likeness, and voice in connection with the video and audio taping of this meeting and broadcast and/or publication of such meeting for any purpose of the RCSC. In accordance with our corporate documents, a board meeting is generally held the second Monday and the last Thursday of each month, with the exception of July and August when there are no board meetings. Before we begin the business at hand, I'd like to introduce you to your board of directors and our management personnel. To my right, Treasurer Sheila Rooney. Morning. Director Darla Akins.
Good morning.
Director Karen McAdam.
Good morning.
Director Rich Hofer.
Morning.
And to my left, Vice President Mike Egge.
Good morning.
Secretary Dale Lair.
Good morning.
Director Steve Collins.
Good morning, everyone.
Director Dan Schroeder.
Good morning.
And Marcia Johnson, our Corporate Executive Coordinator.
Morning.
For our management team, Jan Eck, General Manager. Bill Cook, General Manager. Kevin McCurdy, Director of Finance. Mike Whiprud, Director of Buildings and Infrastructure. Chris Herring, Director of Operations. Brian Duthu, Director of Golf and Grounds. Jolynn Higgins, our Communications and RCSC Marketing Coordinator. I'd also like to recognize Alan Kleinhans, who operates all the audio at this and other events, and Mike Dvorak, who's up in the booth on our video camera. Also Teresa Serino, who is our Director of Events and Entertainment. Okay, Secretary Lair, do we have a board quorum?
Madam President, yes, we do have a quorum.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam President,
Yes, Secretary Lair.
I would like to remove item 3 from the agenda.
Okay. So now I need a motion to approve the agenda for that.
I move to approve.
Okay, Director Collins, second.
Second.
Seconded by Vice President Egge. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approval of our minutes from the May 27th, 2021 meeting.
I so move.
Okay, motion by Director Akins, second.
Second.
Seconded by Secretary Lair. Any discussion on this? Okay, seeing no discussion, we have a motion to approve the minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, before we get into things today, I'd like to make a few comments here. First, I'd like to thank the Board of Directors and our senior management team for sticking with things over the last few days, even though we have been bombarded by emails and threats. All of us on the board understand that pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in America. And we realize that you have 694 members in your pickleball club that support your position on the rumor that pickleball courts are being eliminated at Mountain View. It is unfortunate that such a rumor has caused all of us such stress. We are going to be looking at two options today for redoing Mountain View. No matter which option we choose to go with, there will be a disruption in pickleball while construction is taking place. As a board with our senior management team, we will look at solutions for this. If you attended or watched the planning session following our last board meeting, you know that we have ADWR restrictions coming down in 2023 and 2025 that will have a profound effect on us. What with the ADWR forthcoming restrictions and suggestions from our members and board on the Mountain View plan in the May meeting, our architects tried to come up with a workable solution. We know that with option one, which is doing all of Mountain View at once, we could possibly have to push it back to deal with the state regulations on water. In going with option two, which is doing Mountain View in phases, we could possibly do parts of Mountain View and at the same time work on the ADWR restrictions. Please understand that Mountain View was not just a new idea that popped up. Mountain View has been on our PIF plan for years and has been pushed back because of other projects. Our Players Club of 206 members, along with our various performance groups, have waited 27 years for a performing arts building. In 2017, our long-range planning committee held 2 town hall meetings to hear what our cardholders wanted to see at Mountain View. These meetings were very well attended, and we knew without a doubt that the biggest items that were wanted were a performing arts center, a resort-style pool, and a gym. In 2020, an ad hoc team was formed to give management a prioritized list of what should go at Mountain View. I was part of that ad hoc committee, and we stressed that not everything on the list would happen, but hopefully as much as possible. We know from other projects how long it takes to get all the permits through Maricopa County, and we haven't even started that. Our first chore is to decide on the plan and then begin the process of filing for permits, which will take months. I would like to recognize all of our pickleball club people. Would you please stand that are here today? We applaud you for having the passion for your 694 member club. And please understand that as a board, we have to make sound decisions for the 39,000 members or potential members. As a board president, I am sorry that a rumor of us trying to eliminate pickleball has caused so much stress. Our intention is not to take away a popular activity. But please understand that there will be a disruption. We will work to find a solution for this and appreciate your patience as we work to accommodate all of our RCSC members. With this, Marcia, do we have anyone who signed up to speak on a motion?
Madam President, no one signed up to speak on any of the motions.
Okay, so I'm going to the second reading, motion 1 by Director Akins.
Madam President and Board Management, I move that we set a 3-minute time limit on member comments and board comments.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Secretary Lair. Discussion. Director McAdam?
Yes, Madam President, I realize that I'm repeating something that I've said at a prior board meeting, but I think that it's important. I will vote against this because I believe that the danger of cutting off what may be very valuable input, either from board members or from our membership, far outweighs the danger of an occasional longer meeting than we would wish for it to be. I don't believe that it's necessary. I believe that there are other methods that are available to us to cut off unnecessarily long comments, and therefore I will vote against this.
Okay, other discussion? Director Collins?
Madam President, I also will vote against this because we come here twice a month and our people come, and if they take longer than 3 minutes to get their point across, we should have the common decency to sit here and listen. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Madam President?
Yes,
I think
Director
the reason behind this is that I'm not trying to cut off anybody. I'm not trying to say I don't want to hear anybody. I want to hear everybody. And unfortunately, we've had some other people that have taken a lot longer than necessary, I think, or a lot longer than really they could have shortened it so that everybody can have a chance, because I've seen people get up and walk out because it took too long for them to get to the microphone. So I want to hear, and if somebody doesn't get a chance to finish what they're saying, then they feel free to come back up again once everybody's had a chance to speak. But I want to hear everybody, and that's why I'm putting this motion in, because I don't want just to hear a few people. I want to hear from everybody. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yes, I would
Director
like to
McAdam?
at least make a friendly amendment to this motion that we not set a time limit on board comments. I think that that's the reason that we're here and the reason that we serve. And on many occasions, a board member has required more than 3 minutes in order to explain something important. So I would like to amend this to remove board comments from this motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, can I have the paper with it?
Did you write up a paper for it?
Okay, I need it to be written out, please. Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, I will go for a vote first on the amendment to the motion. Director McAdam?
Yes.
Director Akins?
No.
Treasurer Rooney? No. Vice President Eggy?
No.
Secretary Lair?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Schroeder?
No.
Director Hofer?
No.
And I vote no. Motion fails. That amendment fails, I'm sorry. Now going on the motion, any other discussion before we take a vote? Okay. Taking a roll call vote, Director Akins?
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney?
Yes.
Vice President Eggy?
Yes.
Secretary Lair?
Yes.
Director Collins?
No.
Director Schroeder?
Yes.
Director Hofer?
Yes.
Director McAdam?
No.
And I vote yes. That motion passes second reading.
Madam President,
Yes, Treasurer Rooney.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the third reading on the motion we just passed by Darlington.
Okay. Do I have a second on that?
Second?
Okay, seconded by Secretary Lair. Any discussion on waiving third reading?
Yes.
Director McAdam?
Madam President, I think that if we have a motion that was approved with 3 dissenting votes, that there's very good reason to ask for it to have a third reading.
Okay, actually, it's 2 dissenting on the motion itself.
Okay, but 3 on the amendment.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, I will go for the vote to waive the third reading, starting with Treasurer Rooney,
Yes.
Vice President Eggy,
Yes.
Secretary Lair,
Yes.
Director Collins,
No.
Director Schroeder,
Yes.
Director Hofer,
Yes.
Director McAdam,
No.
Director Akins,
Yes.
and I vote yes. That means motion passes. It becomes effective in this meeting. Okay. Moving on. Second reading, motion 2, Secretary Lair.
Madam President, Board of Directors, I move to accept the recommendation by Director of Operations Chris Herring to amend Board Policy Number 10 titled RCSC Rules and Regulations, section titled Aquatic Facilities, Pools and Spas, items number 4 and 12 as written.
Okay, I need a second on this.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Treasurer Collins. Any comments, discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, we are voting on the changes in the section titled Aquatic Facilities for Board Policy 10, numbers 4 and 12. Vice President Eggy.
Yes.
Secretary Lair.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Director Schroeder.
Yes.
Director Hofer.
Yes.
Director McAdam.
No.
Director Akins.
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes second reading. Okay, flipping over to third reading of motion 1 by Treasurer Rooney.
Wait,
Second reading.
Oh, I am sorry.
No, you removed it.
Yeah, no, we
no,
didn't
we
remove
removed the
that
agenda
one.
items.
We did not remove that one. I marked the wrong one. I'm sorry about that
I
one.
did too.
Secretary Lair, it is second reading, motion 3.
I did the
Madam
same thing.
President,
Okay.
Board of Directors, I move to accept the recommendation by Director of Operations Chris Herring to amend the Board Policy Number 10 titled RCSC Rules and Regulations, section titled Miniature Golf, item number 2 as follows. Players may play only one ball when others are waiting.
I need a second. Seconded by Vice President Eggy. Discussion. Director McAdam?
Yes, Madam President, my comments here would be similar to the ones that I could have made at the second reading of motion 2 as well, and as I have expressed in a prior board meeting, and that is that a general statement such as activities that negatively affect other users or RCSC facilities is plenty adequate. It covers the changes that are being proposed here, but also any number of yet unthought of ways in which patrons or property could be negatively affected. A broad statement would be an adequate standalone policy. And I believe that our policy should be reflections of our values rather than a regulatory morass attempting to legislate every minutia of activity. And I believe that the board would be better served by concentrating on our broad values than on small items like this.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, it appears we're ready for a vote on Board Policy Resolution Number 10 on the miniature golf. Players may play only one ball when others are waiting. Secretary Lair.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Director Schroeder.
Yes.
Director Hofer.
Yes.
Director McAdam.
No.
Director Akins.
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney.
Yes.
Vice President Eggy.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes second reading. Now, let's skip over to this. Sorry about that. Third reading, motion 1 by Treasurer Rooney.
I move, based on the Insurance Committee's and the RCSC Insurance Broker's recommendation, to approve the 2021-2022 insurance renewal proposal for the rec centers of Sun City Incorporated. The renewal proposal includes the same insurance coverages, carriers, and terms and conditions for RCSC's expiring coverage, with a slight increase in annual premium of 1.7%. Due to the market tightening and escalation of insurance premiums seen by most commercial and municipality recreational insurance clients, RCSC is very fortunate to see such a minimal increase. RCSC insurance broker Lockton Companies indicates our carriers regard RCSC as a prestigious risk as well as best in class.
Okay, I need a second.
A second.
Seconded by Director Akins. Any discussion on this? Okay, seeing no discussion, we have a motion to accept the RCSC's insurance broker's recommendation as well as the committee. Starting with Director Collins,
Yes.
Director Schroeder,
Yes.
Director Hofer,
Yes.
Director McAdam,
Yes.
Director Akins,
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney,
Yes.
Vice President Eggy,
Yes.
Secretary Lair,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion passes third reading. It is final. Okay, and third reading of motion 2 by Treasurer Rooney.
Furthermore, I move that also based on the Insurance Committee and the RCSC's insurance broker's recommendation that RCS decline terrorism risk insurance. The terrorism-related coverage is optional for commercial property and casualty coverages except for workers' compensation. Terrorism risk insurance, otherwise known as TRIA, was initially created by the federal government after the 9/11/2001 attack on American soil. The act allows the federal government to share in monetary losses with insurers on commercial property and casualty losses due to a terrorist attack sponsored by foreign interests. For TRIA coverage to apply, a terrorist event would have to be declared by the Secretary of Treasury in concurrence with the Secretary of State and the Attorney General of the United States. There has never been a declaration in the United States since this act was passed by Congress in 2002. The TRIA charge is significant, and the exposure to RCSC is very incidental, if at all. RCSC has rejected the TRIA on applicable coverages during the past several years.
Okay, I need a second.
No, second.
Seconded by Vice President Eggy. Okay, discussion. Okay, seeing no discussion, we have a motion to reject the TRIA on our insurance coverage. Director Schroeder,
Yes.
Director Hofer,
Yes.
Director McAdam,
Yes.
Director Akins,
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney,
Yes?
Vice President Eggy,
Yes.
Secretary Lair,
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
And I vote yes, motion passes third reading. And that makes it final. Okay, at this time, Marcia, has anyone signed up to speak on any of the agenda items?
First person would be Jim McConnell.
Okay, and as your name is read, as you please come, you'll have 3 minutes for comments as indicated by the light on the stage. And when you approach the microphone, we ask that you state your name, member number, and we'll go from there. Jim.
Good morning, Board. Jim McConnell, 47962. 6 years ago, the Mountain View renovation project became part of the long-range planning's recommendation and the board's acceptance of the 5-year plan 6 years ago. We are in year 6 now. The renovation project has progressed over the past years by fits and spurts. It has survived other intervening projects such as the collapse of the roof on the Sundial swim pool, legislation issues, litigation issues, the discontinuance and the reconstitution of a long-range planning committee, and several other items. It's understandable why this is year 6. The Long-Range Planning Committee conducted, as President Wilson pointed out, public hearings back in 2017. They have continued their research. They have brought forth a recommendation that was heard, debated, and approved by this board. It went to an ad hoc committee for advising to a very capable group of management personnel who have shepherded this project through. I have not been part of any endeavor in my professional life or personal life or delaying consideration beyond the planning point would in any way freeze or reduce costs. I have seen a figure advanced of 17-point-something million dollars. That has to be a resource side projection, not a cost projection, if it even exists, because we don't have the plans to the point where we know what the cost will be.
That's right.
I can't imagine that a board that has been this diligent in following this project through could possibly see any wisdom in Agenda Item 2 of declaring a moratorium on this planning. A moratorium indicates the architect lifts their pencil from the paper the discussions stop, the options no longer are explored, and all the momentum that's been gained over the past 6 years is brought to a skidding halt. And believe me, it will never get back again if you do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Vic Hageman?
Good morning, Vic Hageman, 145711. Why were the pickleball, tennis courts, and lawn bowling eliminated in option 2?
They're just not, if you look at the phases, and we'll be hearing the presentation here very shortly, we're not saying they're eliminated. We're saying that right now, we want to do this in phases, and we know that the first phase would be the theater and the gym. The second phase would be the pool. Then the third phase, we have undeveloped. So we can look at pickleball, we can look at mini golf. That's all left open as of yet.
Okay, so you're saying that this area in the orange back here is the area that will be discussed for this,
I
for
think it will
pickleball,
be,
lawn bowling, and
I think it would
mini
be
golf?
helpful if you wait until you hear the presentation from our architects,
Can I
and
speak?
they'll explain it.
Can I come and speak again after they present then?
You can come and speak at member comments.
Okay. All right, I'll wait for member comments then. Thank you.
Ed Millett?
Hi, Ed Millett, 126371. Pickleball player, ex-president of the pickleball club. And the last, that thing, the email we got about the design, I can't see how you could take out the pickleball courts that are there, being that they cost about $30,000 per court to put in. I mean, why eliminate them when we have them there already? I know you're trying to probably do with the ADA parking and all that down in the facility. What about thinking about putting some above-ground parking and put something underneath it, like the lawn bowling, so they would get both, they'd have the shade in the summertime? That would be an option for you to think about.
Okay.
Really, you know, taking out them courts is really a waste of money that you've spent already.
Yes, Secretary Lear.
Again, you know, you keep coming up with this of eliminating pickleball, and regardless of what you do, when you look at, you know, I think for me personally, Mountain View, number one on the list for Mountain View is the theater. That is our primary thing. We've talked about the theater, number one, the resource pool, and the gymnasium. Now, all the other little pieces that have to flow and work together, we're not taking those away, but we have to make that design with the theater in mind. Number one, the resort pool and the gym. And then we figure out what else we're going to do and where we're going to put it. No matter what happens, those pickleball courts would probably be inaccessible to you during this construction period.
Well, that's not a problem, because we went through that when
Exactly.
Mountain there. I mean,
Then
the
we're
Marinette
saying the
built.
same thing, sir. We're saying the same thing. We're not permanently eliminating them.
Well, according to the plans that we see, you know, there's no pickleball there. They put a basketball court where the pickleball courts are. That's what, you
But
know, that's
again-
basically what
But
half
again,
our club is here.
That's phase 3. When we're looking at phase 3, that is definitely a possibility to put it there. We're not saying no, and we're not looking to take away any pickleball, but we are looking at how we can best do this. The design, and if you were here at the first meeting when they presented the Mountain View plan, you will have heard that they made many comments about the parking being too far away from the theater, about where everything was located. So that this is a plan to try to address those issues that were brought up at that meeting.
You know, we're kind of concerned, that's, you know.
I understand.
Thank you.
Jim Palmer?
Okay, thank you.
Richard Haywood.
My concerns were eloquently covered by Board President Wilson in her opening address.
Okay, thank you.
Evelyn Larson.
I'm unsure. I'm 140683, and I'm unsure if I should be talking now or under member comments. I am here about the renovation and pickleball, and I do appreciate your opening comments. And I understand that you all have a real difficult balancing act to meet a lot of competing needs here in Sun City. And I'm not here to speak against any other of those clubs and those interests. I know they're all very important. I am, however, really confused, and it was helpful to hear you say that, because I get these emails with these plans, and there's this plan and that plan, and I'm unsure of what is actually being considered. So it does help to know that it is addressed down the line. And I guess what I'm speaking to is pickleball at Mountain View Court. Is it your pleasure to have me continue now or speak under member comments?
Strictly up to you.
Okay, I will wait for member comments and use
Okay.
my time then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Patty Evans.
Okay, thank you.
Bob Thacker.
Okay.
Don Shorgy.
Don Giorgi, 27140. Madam Chairman, Board, my comments were meant to be delivered after we've seen a comparison between Phase 1 and Phase 2. There seems to be some confusion. People have not had a chance to hear from Mike Whiprud. I don't see the architects. I thought they'd be here.
They're here. They're sitting right there.
Oh, there you are. Anyway, to have our comments now before the presentation doesn't make sense. So please, let's get on with the presentation, and then I would like to make my comments. Thank you.
Keep going. We actually have comments for the agenda items before the agenda, and then there's a chance for member comments afterwards as well.
Mary Crocker.
Hi there. I look forward to...
Name and number, please.
I'm sorry, Mary Crocker. My number is 151615. Easy, huh?
Yeah.
I just moved here in November during the COVID thing, and the whole world was shut down. I got stuck in Florida for 8 months. I owned my home for almost a year before I actually saw it. But I did know about the pickleball, and I did know about Mountain View, and I knew that I lived real close to Mountain View, which is part of the reason I bought my house. I just really have a passion for pickleball. I think it's very unfortunate that all these different plans came out and confused everybody and really riled everybody up, because this is, as you've noted, a club of over 600 people. And I have a question. The players, I don't know anything about that club. How many members did you say there are?
There's 206 members at our last membership count, but also keep in mind there's various other performance groups like the piano club, the choralers, the women's chorus. They would also be taking advantage of this place.
Okay. Has anyone done a count on all the groups
Oh,
that
yes.
play in there?
Oh,
So
yes.
what is that count?
Do I have it with me? No, I don't have that with me. Do we have the count? Yes, we have membership numbers of those clubs.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Donna Hollick.
Must be Donna.
Hi there, Donna Hollick, 119535. I am the member of the Sun City Pickleball Club as well. I'm also part of the team that puts on the outside tournaments for the Sun City Pickleball Club at Marinette. I also play pickleball for the Team Selkirk, which is the largest professional team, as an amateur team member. So I realize some of this, we're talking before you actually get to see the next level of the renderings. But just to put it on the records, as far as the pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the United States. The USA Pickleball shows stats that the growth of pickleball in 2020 was at 21.3%, compared to tennis, which has a downward trend since 2010, with only a growth of 4%, based upon data from the Tennis Industry Association. Now, golf, as you know, has a national decline as well since 2003, was seeing business as usual in 2020 until the pandemic. And with the pandemic and people being outside, golf still only had an increase of 6.2%. Golf is one of the biggest expenses in RCSC, and pickleball, we do not have a high maintenance cost to your RCSC budgets. Also, when we put on our outside tournaments, the money that we collect for the Sun City Pickleball Club, remember we purchase all the balls and help cover expenses for improvements to the courts. The social and health benefits of pickleball is tremendous benefit to all Sun City residents. And you would be adding more wait times to any current Marinette courts, and also more pollution and traffic to residents if they have to drive from one end of Sun City to the other just to play pickleball. So hopefully, when I remodeled our house last year, we figured out all of our remodel before we started. So I do find it interesting that you're going to plan a remodel, but then still have phases as you go along, but not really knowing the answers. So that is a concern to me as well. And I'd like to commend Director McAdams for voting no on the micromanaging motions. And I can see why RC moves at such a slow pace on improvements. If they would use their time more wisely, that would be a benefit to all the members. Thank you.
Jan Dobson.
Jan Dobson, 140035. I want to thank the committee, all of you, for being here and doing this on such a high wage anyway. So, yeah, thanks. And the brand new park in Peoria even included pickleball as part of their new, as the first part of their phase. And I believe there'll be more. Those courts are busy all the time up there. Little kids to our senior adults. So I agree that I'm surprised that pickleball is not already in the plans and a set spot for the new renovation at Mountain View. With as often as pickleball is played and those courts are used at Marinette and the Mountain View courts that are currently there, I really think it's would be a disservice to the renovation that there isn't a permanent, already set area that is a way improvement to what we currently have in the pickleball courts at Mountain View. Thank you.
Shirley Boswick.
Pass. Pass.
Oh, she doesn't want to talk? Okay. Vicki Miller.
Hi, Vicki Miller, 104197. And I appreciate you guys all, doing what you do every day of the year. My concern is with the tennis courts at Mountain View. I've heard a lot about the pickleball courts, and I've heard you say they're not going to be eliminated. They're going to be there. I've not heard anything about the tennis courts yet. That's where my concern comes in. I am co-captain and a member of the Sun City Women's 4-0 tennis team. Members of our team and tennis players in general are concerned of the possible decision to be made by the Board of RCSC representatives concerning the only tennis courts available in Phase 1 of our community, and that's at Mountain View. Right now, we've got pickleball and tennis. If you take away our tennis, there is nothing for people over in Phase 1. Hey, we'd be happy with just a disruption. We've already lost all of our courts available in Phase 3. Now there's a real possibility of losing we only have 2 courts in Phase 1, and there's a possibility of losing that, from what I've gathered. The Bell courts, we have 10 of those, and we're very proud of those courts. You guys did a fantastic job when you built that facility at Bell. Very proud of it. The sad thing is, there really hasn't been any maintenance done on those courts since they've been put in. Now, we've got 4 courts at Lakeview. Those courts, they're seriously, honestly, they're dangerous to play on. There's cracks in them, there's places to trip on. And those courts, I don't think they've even been looked at in the last 7+ years. At Bell, when our snowbirds are here, those courts are filled up every morning, as are the pickleball courts, I'm sure. Okay, but where do we have? We've got 2 courts at Mountain View to go to, and those get used up. And we've got the courts at Lakeview if people want to take the chance at playing there. So our courts at Bell is all that we have. I really hope the RCSC will consider or reconsider the decision of whether or not to take out the tennis courts at Mountain View. Please leave them intact. Pickleball has either 4 or 6 courts there, I'm not 100% sure. Tennis has 2. This motion of eliminating tennis for pickleball is not fair to the tennis players or people in Phase 1. We also have people that have moved to Phase 1 because of the tennis courts that are there. That's the same for everybody. That's why, you know, we choose where we live, is sometimes to be closer to what we do and what our passion is. Please also look at the upkeep at the Bell and the Lakeview tennis courts, and thank you for taking the time to reconsider this decision. Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes, Secretary Lehr.
I would just like to respond a little bit with some information. And I know that, you know, when you're involved in a sport or an activity, you're very passionate about that, and I get that. But when you're sitting up here, you have to make a decision not only with your heart, but, you know, we have a fiduciary responsibility. So we're looking at overall expenses. And you know, if we did every whim and every want, your rec fees, your annual assessment, I should say, would go up substantially. You know, we work very hard up here to keep the cost of living here reasonable. And to that end, the Long Range Planning Committee has spent a lot of time this year determining capacity for all different activities, and then looking at actual utilization results so that we can come up with how often a sport or activity is used based on the amount of time available that it could be used. And when you're looking at something, and the other thing we also factor into this is a trend line. Now, for most activities here in Sun City, we are looking at a 14-year trend line, with the exception of bowling, which we have data going back 28 years. With that being said, over the last 14 years, the trend for tennis is down 46%. You know, those are the numbers. And when you look at the actual activity at Bell, Lakeview, and Mountain View, it's very low. If I combined all that activity and pushed that all to Bell, you would only be using 6% of your capacity. So it's very hard for me as a board member in doing my due diligence as far as controlling costs to promote something that you have and aren't using. So I understand the passion, I understand the need, you know, and when you see your sport or activity, it's your thing, but we have to look at the big picture. And so sometimes when you talk about tennis, yeah, you know, I'm not so sure tennis will be there when it comes around to the next phase. I'm going to be really honest with you. I look at the numbers, and I asked the gentleman who spoke at the last meeting if people from the tennis club are signing in, and he told me yes, they were. So I have the numbers. And the numbers have to, they speak too. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam
Marcia?
President.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Director Akins.
Yeah, I would like to make a comment about a member who spoke a few minutes ago. And we have to remember that we are now dealing with commercial property versus private property. And when you deal with commercial property, you have there's a lot more detail to it. There's a lot more county permits you have to get, and there's a lot more things you have to take into consideration. If you have been around for a while, like I have, because I've been living in Sun City since 2005, and I've seen a lot of things go on here. When they did the renovation for Fairway, that was a complete tear down. They tore the whole place down and then rebuilt the whole thing from the ground up. It took 2 years to develop the design. They started in '06 and they completed in '08. And then the construction started in '08 and the construction was not completed until 2012. So it took a total of 6 years to complete that project. This is not something that's going to happen. It has to happen in phases because Fairway was done in 2 phases. And in doing it in 2 phases helps us to regroup and realize where we're going, and if we're headed in the right direction, do we need to shift something? Do we need to change up a little bit? And it gives us a chance to make more flexibility in our decision making.
Okay.
And financially. Thank you.
Okay, Marcia?
Tom Jeffers.
Tom Jeffers, 122547. This statement was written prior to President Wilson's statement this morning, and this is regard to the email that went out to the membership regarding option 2. President Wilson, directors, and executive staff, I'm the current vice president of the Sun City Pickleball Club. My presence here today is to address the Mountain View pickleball courts as part of the Mountain View Recreation Center renovation. In checking with our membership director, our pickleball club membership has, as of yesterday, 695 members, many of whom play pickleball at Mountain View exclusively. You may recall one of our longtime members, Rich Peterson. Rich was a member of the ad hoc Mountain View Planning Committee. Rich and his fellow committee members created an amazing product that included not only their recommendations for facility upgrades, but a site rendering that was met positively by the local community, various clubs at Mountain View, and the RCSC board. That site rendering included a pickleball court expansion and a much-needed larger playing waiting area with adequate seating and shade. My concern today is that in spite and agreeing in principle to that expansion, the board has reversed course by eliminating the courts from the Mountain View Center plans entirely. Most of the Mountain View pickleball players live a short distance from the center, and definitely south of Grand Avenue. Many walk, ride a bicycle, or drive a golf cart to the courts. Our Mountain View players tell us they are reluctant to drive to the Marinette courts for the following reasons. Travel time is 15 to 20 minutes each way by auto. Many do not drive north of Grand Avenue. Golf cart drive time between the centers is even longer. This is a safety issue for them, especially crossing Grand Avenue. Many households have only one auto and perhaps a golf cart. This limits the transportation options for these households. The Marinette Center is frequently at capacity during the high season, causing extended wait times for court. Eliminating the Mountain View courts would add wait times and crowds by forcing anyone in Sun City to wait and wanting to play pickleball up to the Marinette Center. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the country in our demographic. Many of our members indicated that they chose Sun City because of our quality courts and enthusiasm for growing the sport among our residents. The elimination of the Mountain View courts runs counter to this effort. In conclusion, I would want to thank you for hearing our concerns. We, as a club, look forward to working with the board to reconsider these changes to the original renovation plans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Tripp.
I prefer to speak after the architects.
Some member comments? Okay. Karen McLean.
Pass.
I'll pass. There are no more signatures on the sheet, Madam President.
Okay, so we are now moving into agenda items. Agenda item 1, Director of Buildings and Infrastructure, Mike Whiprud, and presentation of the CCBG Architects of Mountain View Center Master Plan alternatives.
Good morning, Madam President.
Good morning.
Board of Directors and members. On May 10th, we came before this board with a recommendation for a plan, a master plan for Mountain View, as prepared by our architects, CCBG. They provided a presentation. This is a master plan that really does two things. It defines the program of what that renovation will be, and it locks down, I use this phrase, it locks down the geometry. It tells you where all the things want to be. And you really need this master plan before you can really proceed with any meaningful cost estimation or other type of planning. So that's really what we're trying to do here. So we have an option that was presented. The board decided not to vote yes or no on that meeting. They wanted to gather comments, and comments you got. In the short term after the meeting, we had the architects address some of the immediate concerns regarding ADA parking and bathrooms by the resort pool. But there were other concerns too, disconnect between the two parking lots, for instance, the fitness center not looking down on the pools. There was some disconnects on that plan. But I will say, in regards to your comments, President Wilson, the plan that they came up with, it adheres greatly to all the criteria that was approved last summer by the board, in the 95% plus range, I'd say. I'm talking about option 1.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So what we presented on May 10th, we're now calling option 1A because it's been slightly modified based on what was presented. It wasn't it's not technically what was presented there. It's been slightly modified to address what I just said. Subsequently, the board has come forth with some other ideas and basically a request to have the architects look at something different, something maybe a little bit more out of the box. And that's what we're going to present to you today. We're calling it alternate 2. What I'd like to say about alternate 2 is it's another idea. So now we have 2 plans on the table. So alternate 1, option 1A is still on the table. So people need to keep that in mind. But I will now turn it over to Martin Ball, who's with CCBG. He's got a presentation to go over what's already been posted on the website. Scott Walker is also with CCBG. He's here. Martin?
Thank you, Mike. Once again, Madam President and members of the board, my name is Martin Ball. I'm with CCBG Architects. We're located in downtown Phoenix and have had extensive experience in working with the Sun City community over the years. We appreciate this opportunity to come before you to present an alternate to the initial plan that was presented on May 10th. As we enter into the presentation, if I could ask for the lights to be dimmed slightly so that we have a little more brilliant view on the screen. And I'll do my best to get my mouth right up next to the mic. There we go. No, that's all right. As we look through the elements of the presentation, I will be referring and pointing to the screen on the far side so that our board members can also see what we're pointing to. So I apologize if you all have to crane your necks just a bit in order to see what we're looking at.
Madam President?
Yes.
Could I ask that the lights be dimmed up here just slightly as well? Is that possible?
Okay.
Okay. And what?
No, not on the stage.
Not on the stage.
Okay.
Okay. And what we will be looking at today is option 1A, which does take into account some of the comments that we heard during the May 10th presentation, and we'll be looking at an alternate to that approach of how we use the site. That'll be option 2. We've been asked to look at these conceptual level plans to better understand how we can use the land that we have on Mountain View. Land is not something we can create more of, and we need to understand how do we get the very best use out of the dollars that we spend on our site in order to accommodate everyone's needs. Key elements that we've been asked to resolve on Mountain View: how do we improve our site security on Mountain View, which was built, of course, at a time when site security was not such a concern in Sun City? And also, how do we best resolve the distance of accessible parking to the entry to make it most convenient to the widest number of members? So we'll see a little bit about that. Starting into our presentation on slide number 2, we see here, this is option 1A, which has been slightly modified. You can see right here, we had an entry island and drop-off area. We have added 4 accessible parking spaces to that island, which is a little different from the initial presentation. The specifics of our accessible route and accessible parking were not the prime purpose of our getting together on May 10th. However, they are critical, and we heard a lot about that during our presentation, so we wanted to add a little more detail for you today. Another element that you can see, one of 12 additional accessible parking spaces that were added to the west facade of the gymnasium. So in this revised plan number 1A, we have a total of 16 accessible parking spaces, as close as they possibly can get to the entrance on the west side of the building. There are additional accessible spaces on the east side of the building. I'm going to jump to the next slide, which is a new slide that you did not see when we got together in May. The key elements here on this overall site plan that we wanted to articulate are the accessible parking spaces right here that we were just looking at. We have maintained the drop-off area right there, and we have in this slide, could we turn those lights back off by chance? Thanks, appreciate it. We have added restrooms at this position right here that are accessible from the pool area that would not require you to go back into the interior of the structure. Those are in addition, oh, that's much better, thank you. Those are in addition to restrooms that we had at this position on the building. We have added additional information about not only the shape and size of the existing resort pool at Mountain View, we have added additional information about the dimensions and the square footage associated with the initial plans for the new resort pool located here, for the lap pool, and for the sport pool. And those of you who attended last month may remember the spa is located here. So as you've had an opportunity to review those during the week since they were published, and then here today, you'll be able to tally up the fact that the combination of the resort pool, the lap pool, spa, and the sport pool is well in excess of the square footage associated with the existing resort pool. And I'll also point out one thing which will be important to those members who use the existing resort pool at Mountain View. The width of the existing resort pool, 99 feet, is the exact width of the shallow end of the proposed new resort pool. We understand that a lot of folks walk that, so that's an important element to keep in mind. What you have had, you do have in this new solution. Moving on to the next slide, we can see just a couple of things of note. This is a slide that we saw together on May 10th. We've added a seat wall to separate in the big resort pool, the deep end in our foreground, from the shallower end of the pool in the background. And also, we have a little additional detail of our ramp entering the sport pool and how the nets for the two courts are proposed to work. For those who play pool volleyball, it's important to note that you'll be playing in a north-south orientation in that. In our next slide, we have just an overview of the proposed modifications, which gives you a view of the new accessible parking in this position, as well as at the entire facade of the new building, which is the gymnasium, 16 spaces, the new restrooms proposed for the pool area, the restrooms that were proposed to be dual use between theater and pool at this position. And you can see the seat wall and a little bit better the ramp coming down into the resort pool. In our next slide, there hasn't been any change to the floor plan that was proposed in option 1. We have consolidated and placed the square footages on the same slide as the floor plan in today's presentation, but otherwise there's no change. And once again here, one of the key features of this plan was that our fitness center, located here on our second floor, had an overlook to the gymnasium and an overlook to the mini golf facility, while the second floor lobby space, which was part of our inclined walking circuit, had an overlook to the pool. Okay. I'd like to take a look now at the beginnings of option number 2. We had some additional feedback from members on our May 10th meeting, as well as some additional feedback from board to focus our attention on an alternate. How might we respond to concerns that CARD members had on the first presentation and build the very best facility that we could on the site, keeping in mind that parking and the distance of accessible parking to the entrance, site security with one point of entry and check-in was critical to keeping the site safe for everyone. That we should attempt to find a way to reduce the downtime, which was an area of concern for folks. How long does it take for a facility to be built? And how could we make that better for residents? And that we should improve on the way that our locker room setup worked for those who use the pool as well as the gymnasium. So what we see on this slide is Mountain View Recreation Center as we have it today. We have a parking lot on the west, which empties only onto Mountain View, and you have one direction of travel available to you. And we have a parking lot on the west side, which gives you ready access to walk directly into where you're going to use the site. And that dates from a time when site security was not a great issue in Sun City. We heard of another site at our last meeting where site security has been a concern, and it has always been a part of the program when we go to rebuild a facility to improve on the security of the site with an eye to fencing the existing facilities, even in option 1 or 1A, as we just saw, to fence those in such that the ease of access from your automobile into pickleball or from your automobile into lawn bowling will be a little different than what you see today. The challenge to that is that it brings everybody into a central location, which in our option 1A, we had our lobby at this position, meaning that you'd have to walk from your car to the center of the site from either parking lot. And that was a challenge for our distances to the entry. So what we see today is a really different look at how would we solve this site if we were not keeping our toes off of all of the other wonderful facilities on the site. And that is what this slide is about. If we are not restricted for the use of the site to build the most expensive part of the site, how would we solve it? In this case, back one. In this case, we have removed the auditorium, most of the west parking lot, all of the east parking lot, lawn bowling, pickleball, tennis, and mini golf. So that's a radical move, we understand. And it's not meant to upset anyone. However, what does it gain us if we were to do this? It allows us to leave fitness and the only resort-style pool in Sun City operational during the course of construction, which helps us in that goal to reduce the downtime. It allows us to continue to have easy access to from your accessible parking to get into the resort pool during the course of construction. And it allows us to fix a little challenge on this site when you talk about the idea of fencing the whole thing in, and how far do you have to walk once it is fenced in from your parking space, which on a busy day could be way out here. If you had to walk all the way to the center before you came back out to pickleball, that can be quite inconvenient, particularly if you're carrying your gear with you. So, having removed all of those existing facilities from the site, how would we envision building back? In this slide, we illustrate that our goal is to construct the new facility, theater, entry lobby, gymnasium, fitness and lockers, and the pool, using all of the same ideas, the same kit of parts that we used in the first presentation in option one, fitting them together in the same way so that you enter a lobby and you have kind of a pinwheel access to get to all of those different parts of the site. And then to solve the parking challenge on this site such that you match the existing amount of parking on site, but improve the distance from even the very most remote parking space here to the front door here. And one of the key features, as we had in our first proposal, is that we'll use the gym and the inclined walking track as a shaded arcade, so that if you have to park over on the far side of the parking, you have a nice shaded experience that faces north instead of looking south or west from sun angles. That's an improvement. You have a nice path to get into the entry. We have also increased not only the number of accessible parking spaces on site, 26 accessible parking spaces here, which is 10 more than you currently have at Mountain View on the entire lot. How do you improve not only the distance from the very closest parking space right here, which is down to 28 feet to the front door? That's about half of the closest distance on the current Mountain View, which was acknowledged to be convenient. One of the things that was liked about the existing Mountain View facility. So we've increased accessible parking. We have a secondary lot, which is very much like the current lot you've got, but reduced in size, on the east side of the property, with a separate entry point for theater days, so that you could approach the theater specifically from that eastern lot, which would naturally tend to segregate those who are going to theater and kind of reserve those spots for theater goers and make it convenient for them to get in, while not making it more difficult for those who use the center on a daily basis to park in this most natural space here where you are closest to the entrance. So we saw that as an advantage. We have the very same elements, once again, that we saw last time. And the entire complex, the goal would be to fix the parking condition, build the complex and the pool in one fell swoop, perhaps in two, but we could do it in one. And then to come back after and remove the existing resort pool. Once again, this is the only resort-style pool in Sun City right now. So we saw an advantage in that, and we wanted to explore that. Moving on to the next slide here. This is a similar view to one that we saw in the last presentation. We're swimming along nicely in the resort pool, and one of the key features that we think this slide shows to us is that we have that direct view to the first floor of the lobby. The second floor of the lobby has a nice view down the length of the pool as well. We have a little negative edge from the resort pool over to the lap pool, which, along with the resort pool, is at a lower level. So those who choose to play volleyball, the ball, when it goes out of bounds, isn't bouncing into the resort pool. We felt that was a positive feature about what we looked at last time. One of the things that you can see in this slide here is a series of windows, which is the second floor of the building, the fitness room, which has a direct view down onto the pool area. And as a contrast to what we have at Fairway, where we have lots of shaded seating around the pool for those who don't want to be in the sun, we've really looked at placing the pool complex at the southwest of the new building so that there's not a structure that obstructs the sun angles for those who really want to go out and seek the sun. In our next slide here, this is an aerial view of roughly the same angle. And one of the things that I'd like to point out that we see as an advantage of this plan, which is kind of similar to one that we explored really early on but didn't present to everyone, is with the locker rooms on the first floor here, fitness above, you have the opportunity to enter the locker rooms from the lobby, go through, get changed, and you have a door directly out to the entire pool complex. So that we feel has improved in this scheme, has improved the access from locker to pool significantly. And just like in the last scheme, that very same movement from lobby through locker rooms off to the other side, you enter directly to the gymnasium. Again, with our kind of pinwheel organization for our lobby, you have a great view from both the first and the second floor down the entire length of the pool complex to an end wall where we envision showing dive-in movies so that you could take advantage on a nice night of floating around the pool and watching a movie. It'd be a really dramatic thing to be able to do, maybe with the grandkids when they come to visit. One other feature that we'd like to take advantage of is the existing solar panels, the photovoltaic array that exists over top of the miniature golf facility at Mountain View. That remains, and we envision bringing people into the theater from the east parking lot underneath the shade of that existing photovoltaic array, and then directly into the theater, which is one of the things that we see as an advantage of this plan that'll kind of naturally segregate the uses, parking for the different uses of the site into two different parts, so that you don't end up walking a little farther on theater days. Next item, slide number 13. Here you can see a floor plan view of the complex as it's envisioned for option number 2. Entering from the parking at the north of the facility into the lobby in a very similar fashion to the original proposal. We have a central lobby from which at the northwest you have direct access to the inclined walking surface and the gym. Directly at the west, entry into the locker rooms. A view to the southwest down the length of the pool, an exit to the south to all the other site amenities for Mountain View, and then to both the east and the southeast access into the lobby space for the theater. In intermissions, it would give the theater the opportunity to have space to remain within the ticketed bounds of the theater without simply flooding in directly into the main lobby of the facility. On the upper floor, we have a very similar arrangement to the first proposal. The inclined walking surface terminates at a little donut on the second floor that overlooks the lobby and overlooks the pool. And then from the workout space, the fitness center, you would have views directly down to the pool and down into the gym. So we envision that that would be kind of a nice place to work out on treadmill, bicycle, that kind of thing. Great view. The functioning of the theater has remained unchanged. There is a second floor overlook for lighting and for long-term storage for theater uses. One thing to note, the bottom line, when you add up the square footage in this phase 2, or excuse me, this option 2 scenario, it's slightly smaller than the option 1A scenario. How the building's put together is just a little bit smaller, which is a good thing, probably. Last, on slide 15, we see once again, step number 4, once you've got this new facility with its new parking configuration up and running, then we can take down the south end of the site, and then what comes next is at the pleasure of the board and the membership to determine how we move forward on the remainder of the site in order to build the very best of facilities for card members. One thing that has been noted to us is that an ADA accessible miniature golf facility would be a very useful thing as compared to the existing 3, I believe, miniature golf facilities with all of the curbing and sloping, very difficult to navigate in a chair. So that was one of the things that was put forward in our further direction from the board to explore in this facility. Ultimately, the goal of option 2 for the board's consideration and direction and for membership is for us to figure out how do we spend our dollars wisely and get the very best condition we can build out of the land that we have. And option 2, which is available to us along with option 1A, has some pain along the way, certainly, as we have seen comments from many folks who are concerned about their existing facilities. Ultimately, it will be for the board to determine and to direct RCSC management and ultimately to direct our efforts to determine how do we do that in the very best way we possibly can. So with that, I'll be very happy to answer any questions from the board as they've had a little time now to consider what's on paper.
Okay. Discussion from the board. Secretary Lehr.
Madam President, I would like to just for clarification, I know maybe this is early on in the planning, but the Long Range Planning Committee did ask, or the ad hoc committee did ask for a rock climbing wall. And there was some discussion about it being in the lobby. Not a good idea. The gym, the configuration of the space that you've allotted for the gym, if we so choose to do this, would it accommodate a small rock climbing wall in the gym area?
As it is shown on paper right now, it is not present in the gym.
Right.
Could it be in the gym? It could, if that's the direction that the board gave to us.
We just don't want to build it and then decide we want it and not have the space for it.
Yes, certainly.
And if I could ask another question, please. In the future, when we determine what outdoor amenities go in there, whether it's mini golf or pickleball or whatever, how would those individuals using those access the facilities to make sure it's secure. I have to compliment you. The rotation of the gym is great, and the site security part of it is fabulous. So thinking of site security again, how would you access those possible
Yes.
amenities?
In option 1A, I've always kind of thought of it as a bow tie, if you will. You come to the knot at the center, which is the lobby, and from there you go out to the north or the south. In option 2, I think of it more as a necktie. You enter the knot from the north end parking where you have one point of security for the entire site. Everyone checks in at the knot, and then you proceed to the south to all activities. The idea being that in option 1, or 1A as we saw it today, when you fence off all of those amenities, the distance from the farthest reach of parking at the east and west becomes really quite extreme if you're a pickleball player to have to go to that center bow tie knot and then walk all the way back north and then do the reverse. In this instance, in option 2, with sort of the necktie approach, if you park at the north end and you come to that center knot, you walk as far as you need to get to your chosen sport, but you don't have to backtrack around to the farthest parking space if that's the space you got on that day. So we saw that as an advantage.
Thank you.
Okay. Other discussion from the board?
I just have one question.
Yes, Director Collins?
You labeled the entrances. I'm just wondering on figure number 10, is there an entrance on 107th Street?
There is
Avenue?
not an entrance on 107th, no. We've moved the entrance to the north end, and then we do have a secondary entrance to be used only on theater days that would allow that parking to be taken advantage of on those highest use days that we get a lot of cars in for a matinee show, for instance, to come in from the east, hoping to alleviate the crunch of parking right at the north end. And there is additional accessible parking on the east lot. The grand total in option number 2 of accessible spaces is 38 versus 16 today.
Thank you.
Other discussion? Director McAdam?
Yes, Madam President, I do have a couple of questions. One would be just sort of realistically, and I understand that a lot of things can happen that would change a timeline, but from the point that you have approval to begin working on this, looking at phases 1, 2, and 3, can you give us an idea about how long you would expect phase 1 to be and how long phase 2 would be? And the reason I'm asking this question is wondering how long do we have to wait for phase 3 to actually begin to become a reality, let alone to be finished?
Yes, absolutely fair question. I think that you would find that the planning stage is when we leave this conceptual site plan exploration to begin to design and engineer a building of this scale at about 48,000 square feet with a lot of technical challenges in the theater, a lot of systems to deal with. You're likely looking at about 4 to 5 months just to get to the point where we can engineer the structure. Then you enter the permitting stage, which, depending on Maricopa County's workload, which is extreme out there right now, as we've all watched the news, you're likely to see about 90 days to get through a permitting process in good times. So, we're looking, by the time we're done going through this kind of process as well, which is an important part of getting to that finish line, it could take a year easily to design a facility and get it permitted. Construction is likely to be something along the lines of what you experienced at Fairway. I think the advantage of this plan is that while we are working through the realities of construction of a large building like this one, we still have the existing fitness and resort pool available on site. Because of the way power is distributed on the existing site, as is typical probably on all of your sites, all the power comes into one knuckle, and then distributes to all the facilities on site. If we were to build option 1A, we would lose that power during the course of construction for the entire length of construction because those transformers and SES need to move out of the way. So that would take down our ability to monitor and to light the facility so that it was safe for card members to use, and thus we would lose pickleball, tennis, lawn bowling, and mini golf during the course of construction. In this instance, our toes are off where that transformer is currently located, and we feel that we can backfeed the existing small building and pool facility in a way to keep them up and running and create a safe site both for cardholders and for the contractors to work on. So that's where we see the distinct advantage in option 2. Ultimately, it also allows us to improve the parking scenario. How far out before we start to build phase 3 in your initial question? I think that you would probably see that the time we spend in designing, then constructing, a minimum of 2 years probably. Then you could take down those existing facilities and begin to grade at the south end of the site and do whatever the board directs to be done. So there, you're probably looking for flat work and grading. It might be 6 months to put up fences around pickleball or whatever it is you choose to build.
So what I hear you saying is sort of a minimum of 2.5 years, but if we were just assuming that there will be some delays in the process, 3 years of not being, so I'm thinking about people who are here concerned about their usage of facilities. So the next question I would have was that I realized that when we look, for instance, at slide 16, the green area that is available for other phase 3 developments, and I do want to point out that there is a written suggestion on here in step 5 that was to construct a far superior ADA accessible miniature golf course at Mountain View as the only thing that was mentioned. I don't therefore think that it's really fair to accuse the pickleball club of having devised a rumor about something happening, because this is actually what was sent out to people. So they looked at it and see, there's no mention made of any other options beyond the ADA accessible mini golf course. And I think a lot of them are thinking that, how often do you see people standing in line waiting to play mini golf for 20 or 30 minutes at a time? I don't know if anybody's ever seen that happen. So I'm not trying to grandstand here or anything. I just would actually really like to have some information about this. So we're looking at a minimum of 3 years of reducing, for instance, the number of pickleball courts by 25% at a time when we have very rapid growth. But the green area right here, what we're looking at is probably not the kind of a perspective that you would have if you were taking a bird's eye view.
Correct.
So I'm trying to, because that doesn't look like it's a very large area in the perspective that it's given in slide 16. So I guess my question would be, how much space is there actually? So you were talking about locking in geometry, and I think this is one of the really big concerns we have, is that if we're locking in geometry and just saying at some point something can be done back there depending on what the board decides on, but if the geometry restricts us, the board's hands are tied and you're very limited in what you're able to do, which is why I think many of the people who are here today want to hear something more conclusive and substantial about what phase 3, what we are actually obligating ourselves to do.
Okay.
So my question would simply be, how much space is there back there? How can we figure that out? How many, if you wanted, so you're looking at moving right now, pickleball, tennis, mini golf, and lawn bowling are the 4 things that we currently have. And how much of that could be recreated what are the options that exist for us? And I think that having a slide that would show us these are some potential options for Phase 3 would put a lot of people's minds at rest, because it would be locking geometry into something that would be acceptable as a future option, rather than we'll just wait for 3 years and see what the board then decides.
Okay. If I may respond to those concerns, they are valid concerns. The first element is that the amount of square footage that's available in green on your site is 102,000 square feet. As a point of comparison, for those of you who are familiar, at Metro Center, Castles and Coasters has a mini golf area that is approximately 106,000 square feet. They have 4 courses of non-ADA golf play there. Let me rephrase that. I do not know it to be ADA golf play. One of the challenges in any miniature golf scenario is the amount of curbing, off-access sloping that is non-accessible, and then just the squiggly little pathways that make miniature golf interesting. So we envision that for an ADA accessible miniature golf course to be constructed, it would take about twice the amount of square footage as a typical miniature golf course. This has not been designed in the 4 weeks between our first presentation and second presentation, and will require a specialty consultant to review and create an interesting miniature golf course. At Metro Center, Castles and Coasters, there are 4 courses. So we envision the very best that you would get on this site, if you used the entire square footage available to you, is probably 2 different courses. That might or might not be the direction that the board gives ultimately to how do you recreate the south end of the site. I think for us as problem solvers, we can certainly explore different options at the discretion of the board as to which facilities and how much of those facilities should go back into the site at the south end. And we would very much like to elicit that direction. I think that the nascence of this new plan is to try to resolve the very real concerns of how do you keep a site safe by creating secure perimeter, and how do you make it more useful, especially when you're considering in this option 1A or option 2, investing the money that it will take to construct a proper theater, gymnasium, pool complex. That's your biggest expense. Certainly not to overlook the reality of the cost of creating tennis courts or pickleball courts or lawn bowling, but you'll spend far more dollars on the building than you will on the site amenities. So our goal was to try to resolve both the program from the ad hoc committee and to speak to some of the critical concerns that we heard on May 10th in a way that was maybe a little out of the box as compared to the initial direction that was provided to us. But I think when you look at the geometry of the existing site that was created in the 60s without cause for concern for site security, once you fence that, the distances that you would walk from the farthest parking space and the usefulness of that parking is really tough in the initial proposal. I'd be perfectly happy to build that building. That would not present many challenges. But when you look at the organization and use of the geometry and the land that you do have, there are some compelling arguments to option number 2. And we hope that the board can provide, after hearing from everyone, some additional direction on what would be appropriate in your minds.
Would it be possible to take Phase 3 and kind of map it out, just so we know what we would have the ability to put there?
Certainly. If that's the direction you provide to us, certainly.
Up to you guys. Okay.
Madam President, I do have one final question
Yes.
that I would like to ask that, and in the process of doing that, I would be very interested in knowing what else would fit there if you built 16 pickleball courts.
Okay.
Because I think the trend lines show us that we really need to do that for Sun City, and I'm not sure where else we have geography available to us to do that. Marinette does not have enough space, even if we add 8 pickleball courts there. If we don't put pickleball somewhere else, 28 courts is not going to be enough to serve the need of a community of 37,000 people. So we have to be looking at something above and beyond. So that would be, that's, to me, I think that's one of the critical things before I feel like I could get on board with plan option 2 would be to see what actually happens there, and for there to be actually an advance commitment on part of the board to saying this is what will go in the south side of that property.
I would like to say, I'm curious why you're coming up with 16.
Because currently we have 7 and we actually need more. And so the question is.
So where did you come up with that number?
I'm just saying, that's
So
more
it's a
than
shot
what
in
we
the
have.
dark.
That's
Okay.
right. I'm
Okay.
saying, I think that is necessary for meeting the demand.
Okay.
At least that amount would be necessary for meeting the demand, and I don't know what other options exist. You know, we
Okay.
probably don't want to have pickleball at 3 different centers. And I don't believe that one single center is capable of meeting the demand. So I'm
Okay,
just
I was just
suggesting that.
curious where you came up with your
Madam
number.
President?
Okay,
Madam
hang on,
President?
Secretary Lair.
I would like us to just get back to the primary reason we're looking at this right now is for the theater, the resort pool, and the gymnasium. Pickleball's important. Don't get me wrong. Listen, give me a chance to speak here. I'm a big fan of pickleball. I play pickleball. I've played pickleball at Marinette. I've played pickleball at Mountain View. I understand pickleball. But what we're trying to do here is the theater is number 1. That's not to say you guys aren't important. I'm going to come back here and speak to the capacity, the utilization and capacity issues. You know, we spend a lot of time on pulling together these numbers, and I'm going to talk about pickleball for just a minute. Marinette, and this was put together by a pickleball player that's already been referred to in the discussion here today. The utilization as a percent of capacity for Marinette is at 37%. The utilization for Mountain View, I'm speaking, please. I'm speaking, please. The utilization at Mountain View as a percent of capacity is 24%. Combined, it's 34%. Now, I have concerns about those numbers. I'm not sure that we're capturing all the activity at Mountain View and at Marinette. So I think my gut tells me that the utilization is actually a bigger number than I'm seeing. But even if I doubled it, it still shows some room here for growth. I will agree, the trend line over 14 years for pickleball is a positive 871%. No one's going to take that away from you. But I must remind you also, there is another sports activity that has a higher growth or trend line than yours, and that is water volleyball. They're at 899%. Their pool, sports pool, is getting put off until the final phase, just like whatever happens in that green area. So let's stay focused on the real issue here. Let's get back to our core concerns, and our core concerns are the theater, the resort pool, and the gym. And that's not to say that, you know, if we have space for 16 pickleball courts and the numbers prove that, and that's the grand scheme and the board approves it, that pickleball courts won't fill that up. I don't know that. You don't know that. Karen doesn't know that. What we're talking about today is deciding at least getting this project off the ground. And I think we're getting caught in minutia and feelings. No matter what's going to happen, you're not going to have access to pickleball at at Mountain View during this construction phase.
Right.
So let it go. We'll find alternatives.
Okay. Madam President?
Yes, Director
I think what you need to kind of try to understand is that we're not eliminating pickleball. That was, I know that's the rumor, and the rumor, when you look at plans like this, because I got to tell you, that's the first thing I thought when I saw this, because I want to also let you know that Director McAdams is not the only pickleball fan up here, because I also love pickleball, and it's a pickleball, I think it's an extremely growing activity. As a matter of fact, it was just on the news the other day saying it's a very popular activity. Just the other day, we're talking when we started these plans from 5 years ago, the three things that Director Lair was saying, that was the focus of this whole center. That was from 5 years ago. Things have changed over the years. So yes, now pickleball has developed in popularity. So now, and I think what McAdams was saying was 16 courts. I'm thinking that that's an arbitrary number. So if possible, could we get 16 courts in there? Because that would be a nice number to help accommodate the growing activity. If not, then let's at least start there and then come down. You know, when you negotiate, you always should start big, and then you kind of negotiate down. So I'm thinking that's where that thinking is coming from. And guys, we are supportive of pickleball. Don't even get out there and start the rumor that we're not, because we are. It's just that was not the priority when we started this 5 years ago. So now we're trying to build it into what is going on, and we are looking at you, we hear you, we don't need any more threats, we don't need any more emails saying that we need to be impeached, okay? Because unless you sit up here and realize what we're going through, you know, don't sit there and start saying I need to be impeached, or start giving me threats, okay?
Madam President?
Yes, Secretary Lair.
Are there any more questions? Because I would like to make a motion.
Any more comments? Director Collins?
One question. So you said that it would be roughly 9 months. Is that when the bids could go out in 9 months?
I think that we need to keep in mind the number of times that we need to talk together as part of that design process, not only in this very formal setting, but all of the work that we do with management of rec centers. That would be a minimum time that you need to engineer a building and get it ready to go into the city. Usually a bid to get your hard numbers, that's not going to happen until you've gone through any amendments to that bid based upon what Maricopa County or the authority having jurisdiction might come back with. So your hard number you will never know until you're permitted. However, by bringing a general contractor who is capable of executing the number of different kinds of facilities that you're talking about building and getting good assistance from them along the way, you'll begin to be in a position to project that number. I will say that as many of you, especially those of you who were involved in the construction industry during your working years will know, the costs of construction are spinning right now, not only for wood in houses, which we hear a lot about on the news, but steel, copper, there are any number of things that are likely to go up or down during the course of design. So my recommendation, and this is a recommendation I give to all clients, is to bring a general contractor alongside early in the process to do initial cost estimating so that you have an idea of where things are coming in. And ultimately, those final numbers will not be ready until you've purchased your FF&E equipment for the theater, your seating, and have hard permittable documents to truly bid.
Right, because that was my thing. I mean, I'm so worried right now that the costs are so high.
Did you ask for
that it would,
I'm sorry.
I was talking, can I ask him?
Yes.
It was that I was so worried the cost of steel, wood, and everything would take our $17 million building and push it to $25 million, which then we have to eliminate things because we don't have the money. So that's what I'm kind of worried. I want to know, kind of looking to see how far out the bids would go, because that will give them a chance for our economy to return to normal and the pricing to come down. So, thank you.
It's a fair concern, and it's something that every client goes through when they initiate a large-scale project like this. Ultimately, I cannot guarantee to you what that number will be 9 months out. We don't have enough in the process at a concept level to be in a position to do that. However, the best advice that I can give to the board and cardholders in Sun City is that you need to explore to know whether or not you're on target. And until you do that, you simply can't know that number.
Okay. Okay. Secretary Lehr.
Madam President, Board of Directors, I would like to make a motion to approve option 2 of the Mountain View project as presented today.
Second.
Seconded by Director Schroeder. Discussion?
Yes, I think that since we put ADA golf course on there, we should also put pickleball in there. Put it in there so they know that they're going to get it.
And I don't disagree with you. I would ask that Phase 3, we have some idea on it as we go, but right now, we know that the main part of this is getting the theater, the gym, and the pool situated, and then we can get to that. Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Any other discussion? Director McAdam?
Yes, I believe that it's way too early to say that we're going to pass up on this without being able to see what Phase 3 would look like. And I would very, very strongly encourage us to delay making that decision until the architects have been able to show us a couple of options for what could happen there.
Okay, Secretary Lehr?
Madam President, Board, I disagree with you, Karen. I'm sorry. This plan has been on the books for so long, and what happens in that phase, it's not going to affect what we're talking about today. You know, I think until we can get actual good numbers for pickleball, and we know what it is, we're just throwing good money after bad. It's like...
Excuse me, folks, she's talking.
And would be respectful, please.
You know, it's pretty hard to sit up here, and I can't even tell you how many hours a week I spend on this position. I get paid nothing for this.
Right.
I work to do the best I can to save RCSC money, to make good decisions based on facts and based on numbers and not personal bias or personal opinion. You know, I'm sorry that that doesn't flow your way today. And I love pickleball. I'm for pickleball. I'm not saying pickleball yay or nay. I'm saying what we're talking about today here is a theater, a resort pool, and a gym. What goes in that green space? And if I look at this overall plan, you've got just as much green space as you've got actual buildings. So everybody needs to take a deep breath. And what we need to get going here is on the Mountain View construction plan and not delay it anymore.
May I say something?
Yes, Treasurer Rooney.
Thank you. I just heard somebody say they don't trust us, and I think that's a really big issue as a board member. It hurts my feelings because none of us sit up here and lie to anybody about anything, ever. And we have your backs. We live here. We play here. We work here. Karen, they all play pickleball. Why would you think that, why wouldn't you trust us? You have to take construction in phases or you can't plan around it. We get this planned, then we do the next plan, then we do the phase 3. We've got your backs. We're not going to let any of you down. We would never do that. We're not going to do it today, and we're not going to do it tomorrow.
Okay, any other discussion? Director McAdam.
So even though I realize there's a question about the story that numbers tell us and the story that people feel by having to wait for sometimes 45 minutes to be able to get on a pickleball court, Some numbers that we do know is that neighboring communities that are considerably smaller than Sun City have twice as many pickleball members in their clubs. So Sun City West, Sun City Grand have 1,400 or something like that. I don't have the exact data with me, and they're smaller communities than we are. I know just anecdotally that people who moved to Pebble Creek that built 20 beautiful courts down there are already saying it's become such an issue because you can't get on the courts. It's become so like unfun to try to figure out how can I block time next week sometime to play because there's such a high demand for it. Those are numbers that we actually know, Dale. So, 34%, I'm not sure where that number comes from or how much of the story it actually tells us. But we are looking at people around us who are making decisions, some people that have left Pebble Creek because they said it's no longer fun to play pickleball here because there isn't enough availability of courts to meet the demand that exists. So I guess as much as I would love to push along this project, I feel this sense that the only option that we have, and maybe you can clarify that there are other options for increasing the amount of pickleball that's available in Sun City. If there are, I would love to hear what they are. But right now, it just seems as though this is the only option of a place where we actually can increase our current availability. And I feel like that's a pretty essential piece to have clarity about before we agree to move forward.
I would like to say that I would urge our pickleball president, whoever that may be, if they are here, along with, to meet with Chris Herring, to look at facilities, to meet with Bill, and to meet with Jan. We can see what options are available. I think that's the first step in doing that. Okay, with that, I believe we're ready for a vote. Okay, Director Hofer. I'm
Yes.
sorry, wait, I want to say the motion is to approve option 2 of the Mountain View project as presented. So now, Director Hofer.
Yes.
Director McAdam.
We need to delay it now.
Director Akins.
Yes.
Treasurer Rooney.
Yes.
Vice President Eggy.
Yes.
Secretary Lair.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Director Schroeder.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes first reading for option 2. Thank you.
Madam President?
Okay, moving ahead, hang on, please. Okay, we are now moving to the second item, Director Steve Collins. Oh, I'm sorry, Jan.
Madam President, if this is your first reading, our second reading will be in September. That means we will take no action.
Second reading will be the end of this month. This is the first meeting in June.
Okay, all right. I'm like, are you sure?
Okay. I know it's been a long meeting, Jan.
We're in the second meeting already.
All right, Director Steve Collins.
Madam President, with what I've heard from the architect, I want to withdraw this motion because we couldn't possibly accept bids by January.
Okay. Okay. With this, we're going to take a 10-minute recess, and then we'll come back and have some board comments. Architects. Member comments as well. Yes, member comments first. If we could meet with the architects, that would be great, please. Okay. 10 minutes, coming back. It's 10:52, coming back at 11:02. I'm getting them out of here.
Wow, that was a triple smack. Good God.
Okay, coming back from a short recess. We are now moving to member comments, and it has changed a little bit because now we do have a 3-minute time limit. So Marcia will read your name, and when she calls your name, you need to come up, give your member name and, give your name and give your member number. And the 3 minutes start. If you, again, we'll call names first before we open up the floor. Marcia?
Ricky Anderson. No Ricky Anderson, huh? Vic Hageman.
Hi, Vic Hageman, 145711. I just think that a lot of us are frustrated because we don't know what the green on the thing here, what the configuration is going to be, and had there been pickleball courts listed or miniature golf courts listed or lawn bowling courts listed, we would all be feeling fine. But because there's nothing there, that's how come we felt that the pickleball courts were being eliminated. So I agree with Director McAdams that we should figure out what's going to go on there so that we know ahead of time, so all us pickleball players and miniature golf players and lawn ball players can feel at ease. And this is a master plan. It says master plan right here, master plan. But the master plan is not a master. It's a semi-master. It only covers the master plan for theater, recreation, and pool. That's not a master plan. That's a plan for the theater, the pool, and the recreation center. It's not a master plan. So let's make the master plan a master plan. Please identify how the green is going to be identified so that all of us can feel at ease. That's why we're up here today, right? Thank you. So had that green been filled out, this would have been a very simple meeting, and we all be very, very pleased. But because there's this up in the air, you say that you're not going to eliminate pickleball. I questioned Director Lair about water volleyball being more popular than pickleball. What's the number of members in water volleyball versus the number of members in pickleball?
I don't have the.
Thank you.
No.
So.
Oh, the numbers are available. We just don't have them right here with us now.
Okay, so I played water volleyball yesterday, and there was 45, 50 people there, which is a good number for water volleyball. And water volleyball is going to be expanded in the new option. I got 1 minute. In option 2, because you're going to have water volleyball courts there. So that's being addressed. Pickleball is not being addressed in the master plan. So, oh gosh, I just feel so frustrated because there's things here that are not discussed in the master plan, and I wish they would have been. And I wanted to speak. I wanted to speak to you guys, but you guys already took your vote. So all this member comment stuff that we're going to talk about option 2 is useless because you already took your vote. Had the architect spoke before we could have spoke to, then we could have said our things before you took the vote. But because you said you wait until after the architects, then all our voices up here, I got 10 seconds, is not being accounted for. So I just find that I wish you would have had the architect speak first and then have comments, and then after that have member comments. Thank you very much.
Madam President?
Hold on, please.
I have another thing to talk about later on.
I'm sorry, Vic, your time is up. I would like to comment, though, that you had a chance before the architects and the fact that we have 3 readings. So we've passed the first reading. Okay. Now, moving on, next name, Marcia.
Jack Farrell.
Okay.
Evelyn Larson.
One 140683. And just a few things came to my mind as I was listening to the architecture presentation and all of the discussion here. And I know that you need, and Sun City needs to address people with disabilities. And I want to tell you that pickleball is doing that right now, and we have been for some time. We do modified pickleball. We use up to 8 courts out of 20 to serve that population. So pickleball does meet that very important criteria that you need to look at. Second of all, capturing activity, that 34% number. Some time ago, you know, we no longer check in. They said, you're part of the club, it's club time. So you all don't actually have a real number of how much is being used on the pickleball courts. And it's difficult to plan if you don't have an actual number, and we're missing that number. Additionally, you know, I'm supposed to play pickleball today at 1 o'clock. It's 116 degrees at 1 o'clock. So yes, we do have a more confined time that we play. And, you know, if we had air conditioning in a big air conditioning pickleball place, we would be using it all day long. Now, that's not realistic. I do understand that. But we are limited due to our climate, and we work around that a lot, because I still play pickleball when it's 102 and 108. 116, I'm kind of down. So, so we're not capturing the real activity. We do kind of, it is hard to space out during some months of the year. So that does not reflect on the popularity of that sport. I think also if people go swim laps at a pool, right? It's an aerobic exercise. They get out of the pool, they sit down, they chat with their friends, they rest, they go swim. Well, with pickleball, guess what? You do the same thing. We have 83-year-olds playing pickleball. They come and play 2 games, they sit down, they visit, they go play another game. Some people play 8 games in a row, then they sit down. So not only do you need the pickleball space, you can't just jam them in there. There also needs to be a little space around that for the social aspect, because social aspect of sports is as healthy for you as the physical aspect, right? So that is important. Now, this word possibility is what's making us uncomfortable. It's very nebulous. The sooner you can tie that down into some sort of a commitment, that would make us more comfortable. Thank you very much.
Madam President?
Yes, Secretary Lear.
Just a comment, Evelyn, to address some of your questions and comments. I'd like to reiterate to you that I, too, do not feel that the numbers used in pickleball are correct. I do feel that we are not capturing all the activity, and I said that before, although there were people who were booing that you probably didn't hear that. We don't look, when we're determining capacity, we do not factor in any of the summer hot months. So that's already taken off. And your third comment about allowing time for socialization and other activities, Rich Peterson, who you know, is the one who determined the formula here for this. He's the one who came up with these numbers. And I didn't do this. You know, one of your own produced this. And he factored in that an average pickleball player comes to play and is on the pickleball course or in the pickleball area for an average of 3 hours. Some people come in and play for an hour, some people are there for 5 hours. Average is 3 hours. So we have a very good formula put down for this, but I do agree with you that we need to do a better job on utilization. So therefore, it's hard for us to plan when we don't have, this option 2 works perfect for us because it gives us some time to get that stuff together. So we're making good decisions.
Okay. Marcia?
Don Shorgy.
Don Shorgy, 27140. When I last got up here to speak, I said that I wanted to compare 1A to 2, the 2 different revisions. Much of what I wanted to compare has already been discussed, and I would say, to kind of summarize it, if it had been clearer that we were not eliminating necessarily the users that are the existing users that Plan 1A addressed, and addressed admirably, then probably a lot of this discussion did not have to be. So I understand that these options are back on the table, that the ADA golf need not be what the Phase 3 will be. I might suggest that that could be an interesting project in itself to be addressed by maybe long-range planning and this board as a separate entity, and to dismiss that from the Mountain View site, but to continue with what the original Plan A addressed, which was the concerns of all the users. Secondly, it has taken us 12 years to arrive at the point we are at today. No other board has done as much as this board to bring about this much-needed project and much-anticipated project. And I thank you for the momentum you've created to bring us to this point today. I now implore you not to delay the project any longer. It's been studied ad infinitum by various committees and users. They've all had their say. And I entreat you not to kick the can down the road to another board in 2022. I'm saying, or I'm asking, that you make the second reading the last reading. Waive the third reading so that this board can come back in September and continue the wonderful work you've done so far. And so that when the 2022 board comes on, this project will begin rolling. I implore you to consider this, and I thank you for what you've done. Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Madam President.
Tom Tripp.
Hold on. I'm sorry, did you call the name? Okay. You have a comment to make?
There are no more names on the list, Madam
Okay.
President.
Go ahead, Director Akins.
Madam President,
Oh, wait, there's one more comment. I know, she just wanted to make a comment about that.
I would like to try to remind everybody that we serve on the board for only 3 years, and unless we go for re-election. So the maximum amount of time anybody can serve on this board is 6 years, if they choose to. Like he was saying, that this has been on the books for about 12 years now. You get a different dynamic every year with this board. So the decisions we make today could be erased completely off in a couple of years from now. So you're upset about things and want this, oh, let's vote on this now, let's put this in concrete. I'm sorry, with the dynamics of our community and the way our board runs and the way society runs, there is nothing really set in concrete. Things can always change down the line. What we're trying to do is get the momentum going in the right direction, and hopefully future boards will continue that momentum and not put a halt to it. Only thing we can do is keep our fingers crossed and hope that that happens.
Okay, at this time, we will open the floor for anyone who did not sign up that would like to speak. When you come up to the microphone, please state your name and your member number. You will be limited to 3 minutes. If you do not have a chance to finish, you can come back again, but we ask that you wait until everyone who wants to speak has a chance to speak. Yes, Jim.
Thank you. Jim McConnell, 47962. Madam President, members of the board, I am the president of the Players Community Theater Group. I would like to take just a few seconds to explain who we are. Our rules and regulations specify that we exist for the purpose of education for ourselves, socialization for ourselves, and entertainment for Sun City and beyond. This differentiates all performing arts groups from other kinds of groups, because we exist for a purpose beyond just ourselves. I think that needs to be known. Now, there are many other groups who are performers, dancers, musicians, vocal musicians, and so on. None of them utilize Mountain View currently as a performing location because it ain't a good place to perform. But it's the only place we've got to perform. And I point that out because
Where do we go next? We don't have a 20-minute drive and we've got another theater. We don't have another place that we can wait in line for. In fact, nobody's ever talked about putting another location other than in Phase 1 of Sun City. There's no Phase 2 auditorium. There's no Phase 3 auditorium. It's 9.1 miles from my door to the Mountain View door. I've never complained about it. I knew when I bought my house that's where it was. So let's look beyond the end of our nose. And I again want to point out, we're only 200 and some members. But then there's the orchestra and the band and the POMs and this group and that group and every other group that have membership. And we entertain thousands of patrons a year. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Vicki Miller, 104197. I again would like to reiterate, yes, our numbers aren't as high as they were before. They have come down, but then like you said also, pickleball numbers are down too. You know, and you talk about 16 courts. Well, pickleball does not have 16 times the number of players that tennis club has. And so you take away all of our courts, you know, we've got nothing there. But you know what? It's a given. You're taking away the tennis courts, it sounds. I've not heard one thing positive said about the tennis courts. So what I'm asking you is, please, I challenge you guys to go to the Lakeview tennis courts and look at what they look like, because this is a sign. Can I? I'll read it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Says, please close gate, and under, please do not come in today, not open today, come back tomorrow. This sign has been there for 2 years. Okay, these are our tennis courts at Lakeview. And you wonder why the numbers are down? Come on. They're going to keep going down. And then what? Then you're going to say, well, you have no numbers there, so you'll take away those courts too? Our tennis courts at Bell, you guys, like I said, you put in fantastic, beautiful courts, but they haven't been taken care of. And they've been there for a minimum of 7 years, and they've not been resurfaced. We finally did get one net that was destroyed because of the weather and the tennis balls, that they weren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that was taken care of, but that's it. There's been no resurfacing, nothing of that. So I'm just asking you, please, you know, you're taking away our courts at Mountain View. Please, don't take away what we have. Please make them better so we can get our numbers up. Thank you.
Cy Zuckerman, 152969. Director Akins brought up a point that this process has been going on for 12 years. What I'm wondering is how, 12 years ago, your priorities were the theater, the pool, and the gymnasium.
Jim, I don't believe the gym was in on that.
Okay, so you've changed it since.
There has been some change, but the town hall meetings are what brought out those priorities.
Okay, is it possible to have more town hall meetings to change? Because the gymnasium is nice. I was a PE teacher for the last 15 years. I didn't work with a gym, I didn't have one. I had to be outside all the time. But I don't see the use of a basketball court with, you know, surrounded by seats and everything. I don't see a use for that here, more than a use for like pickleball courts or tennis courts or the lawn bowling that, you know, aren't in the proposal yet. How do we change that? How do we change the 3 priorities that you have? You can't?
No, that's a board decision. And we just
You
did
just
option
said,
one.
you just told me.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry, go.
We just did the first reading on option 2 to approve that first phase, and then the second phase, and then we'll go into phase 3. Those were, when we did the town hall meetings back in 2017, those were the 3 areas that we heard about the most from the people. When we did the ad hoc committee, those were also 3 very strong interest areas that people definitely wanted. And we made sure that we had people from all areas on that committee, on the ad hoc, to voice their concerns and to give us some direction to go.
Now, that was in 2017?
No, that was in 2020.
Oh, so last year you did it?
Yes.
Okay, and it was still decided that the gymnasium was,
Yes.
okay. I just thought that, you know, if you can change it once, you can change it again, because priorities seem to have changed here.
I'm John Morgan, 106668. 2 questions. One is, I'd like to hear from President Wilson and any others who would like to comment as to why it is so difficult for you, or you're so unwilling, to make the simple commitment that, yes, there will be pickleball courts at Mountain View. Is there someone?
I'm sorry.
Madam President,
Did you not listen to my first thing where I said I'm not looking to eliminate pickleball courts?
But that doesn't say that you are committing that there will be pickleball.
I'm not necessarily saying, will they be right there? No. We have to look at it to see where we can do that. So we're still looking at phase 3. Would I like to see pickleball courts there? Well, I'm one of 9. My answer is yes. I don't know. My other board members they're thinkers. Yes.
Madam President.
Secretary Lair.
John, what I would like to see at this point in time is to get a better handle on where the need is. We have people, talking about tennis.
Please keep in mind we have a 3-minute time.
We have people talking about a pickleball. We've had, people with disabilities talk about lack of ADA. We've got a lot of people coming at us telling us things. I would like to make a decision based on facts. So if pickleball rises to the top and pickleball's the thing, and you would prefer to have pickleball there than, have a center of excellence somewhere, that's your business. We will make decisions based on the facts, and we don't have them right now. So when you're asking me why we can't commit, I'm not going to commit to anything in phase 3 till I know what the numbers really are showing and where the need is.
So
because
you don't,
it saves you money, it saves me money.
This is my 3, okay, you stop. Go ahead.
Go with your second.
When you say you can't commit because we don't have the numbers, we certainly have the numbers to justify the courts that we have now.
Mm-mm.
Oh, well.
We know that you have 694 members. We do know that.
And I can testify, as many others here can, that often, and again, pickleball is social, and we are, we go there not just to play pickleball, but to meet our friends as well. There are often, though, 30 of us or more waiting to play on 7 courts, and all 7 courts are full. That's 14 courts needed at those times. And no, we can't play around the clock, and I'm not sure what hours you use to figure the 34% that you came up with. But the club hours are very busy, and there's that need. And anyone who goes to the courts and watches during the wintertime, they'll see that that's the case. I just don't understand, and I think most of us don't understand why it's so hard to say, yes, there will be pickleball at Mountain View. That's what.
Okay, again.
So that was my second comment is, and more of a comment, but I understood that there's a 3-minute time limit on board members, and
yes,
I have not seen the clock go on yet for a board member.
During board and member comments. We're in member comments.
Okay, thank you.
Mary Crocker, 151615. And I'm concerned about the counts that you guys get, because when I go to Marionette every morning, they say don't sign in because I have a badge. So you're not getting any register, you're not getting any account of me being there for that day. Why is that? Why shouldn't we all be sliding our card? This doesn't show anything besides the fact that I paid my $15.
I wholeheartedly agree with you that we need to have people check in with the monitor.
Well, then I strongly suggest you tell the people at Marinette that we're still supposed to slide our card, because I haven't slid my card in probably a month. Well, since we opened.
Hold on a second. Okay, we can respond, but you're on the 3 minutes, yes?
No, I stopped the clock.
Oh, okay. Well, no, keep the clock going, please.
The decision that was made for you not to check in with the monitor was made by a previous board, and we went through the same thing with Aqua Fitness. They said we no longer needed to check in with the monitor. That is the decision we're trying to change right now, because we do have something in the works that's saying that everybody needs to check in.
Yes, yes. We're past motions, sir. I'm sorry.
Bill Pearson, 133438. I said I was going to sit in the back and not talk, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Don, you're wrong. The theater was actually in the works for the Bell Rec Center when it was opened in 1976. They went over budget, so they took it out of the plans. They spent way more money than they thought they would. So that's been a fight for a very, very long time, and I'm delighted that you passed the motion. I thought Plan B was wonderfully improved from, or Plan 2 from Plan 1 or A. The situation of on the property is excellent. But here's the reality, guys. 6 of you will be gone by the time the first shovel of dirt is turned there. So just everybody understand that whatever you say to us today is what you can say to us today, because 6 of you will be gone unless you're dumb enough to run for a second term. Yeah, I know, Rich. You didn't need to raise your hand. So that's obviously frustrating, but pickleball is an issue that obviously has to be dealt with. You do yourself a disservice by, Dale, I loved your numbers, but you got to grow. Rich, your argument was, what's the biggest thing coming at us? Right now, it's pickleball, and I don't play. I got no skin in the game. But you've got to be realistic. People sitting in these seats want what? A commitment. And here's the simple truth, guys. You got the lake that is now up for discussion. 11 years has gone by, 11 and a half, whatever the number was from the state. 10 years ago when I was on the board, we were talking 10 million. It might be 15 or 20 million dollars.
Correct.
You got the water management issue, because I read the PGA report and I watched your last meeting. You could be talking $4 million a golf course to go to desert landscaping. There's only so many dollars, guys.
We know that.
But these people don't know that. That's where people say, do we trust you? Here's where my frustration comes in from this board. Absolute transparency is your best protection. If they know that that lake is going to be a $15 million bill, what happens to Mountain View? If they know that every golf course is going to need $3 million on the ones you haven't converted to desert landscaping, where's that money going to come from? Everything is impacted. When I was on the Long Range Planning Committee, and I quit it because you wouldn't look big picture and talk to people realistically. You got to be straight up with people. They got to know that everything they do and everything you do is impacted by what happens, and sometimes you have no control. You're just subject to it. So it isn't mistrust, it's know everything, and then everybody can understand. Thank you.
And Bill, if you listen to the first speech, my first statement, I did talk about the ADWR and the restrictions coming down. Okay, well, I'm sorry. Yeah, you missed that then.
Watch it on video.
Not that tall. Good morning. Frank Spina, 141822. The more that people talk, the more that it seems like everybody is kind of on the same page. Everybody has a little skin in the game. I live 2 blocks from Mountain View, With all due respect, I think in 3 years, I've seen 5 times people out there playing tennis. So I'm not quite sure, the value of those 2 courts, but I'm not a tennis player anymore. This is a senior community, and I must have misunderstood Secretary Lair. You're talking about perhaps a rock climbing wall for seniors?
That was a
actually an ad
recommendation
hoc.
of the ad hoc committee.
Yes.
Are you going to have an
I'm
ambulance on site 24 hours a day?
Actually, if you look at our ad hoc recommendations, we prioritized the list, and a rock wall was far down on the list.
No, I just, when she brought it up, I was just kind of like, really? Okay. Has anybody thought about talking to the architects that this is a resort-style pool, putting a bar at one end of it, a swim-up bar? You could probably make some money that way.
Now we're talking.
I like it.
I would buy
I
there.
like that.
You can smile a little bit. It's a joke. That's okay. Don't. And again, you have said on a couple of occasions, President Wilson, that you're not talking about eliminating pickleball. But
Right.
whoever it was that got up here recently made the point. Nobody has said, we are keeping pickleball there. That's the problem we have. You know how much space is available, whether it's 7 courts that we have now, whether it's 16 courts that Director McAdam wants, whatever it is, you know how much space is there. This has gone on forever, as everybody has said, this project. It's time to make a decision. I don't like the comment, it's a living document, it can change. I'll be dead by the time this is all done. Somebody's got to make a decision. Let this board, who's done a lot of work on it, make a decision so we can move forward and it gets started, and then everybody's going to be happy at that point. Can't change it once it starts. So just get it done. Thank you for your time.
Donna Hollick, 119535. Director Lair, you said that you play pickleball both at Marinette and Mountain View?
Yes.
Are you a member of the Sun City Pickleball Club?
No, I am not.
Okay. So
I was at one point, but I'm too busy here doing this.
Okay. One of the things about our numbers being skewed is because we provide the balls, we have paddles available when you come in with your RCSC card. We don't have as high as membership because you can come play on our dime anytime. You're already an RCSC card holder, and now, if luckily, a guest.
I have my own paddle.
Correct. You don't have to be a member. So please, when you look at our numbers, they're not necessarily always going to be correct because, again, you don't have to be a member of the club to play and use the pickleball courts. So please take that in consideration as well. I also do want to say the same thing, that a lot of this board will not be here when these final decisions are made on Phase 3, and that's what's concerning to us. Because we know when Marinette was built, those courts were supposed to have better amenities, different gates, and even at one time was going to be enclosed and air-conditioned, and the budget got cut. We don't want our budget cut again. We just want to make sure we have the courts.
Madam President? Just a comment to you. I don't disagree with anything you say, but as Bill Pearson, who was just up here, mentioned, there's a lot of moving things going on. And so it's not always easy. One of the things that was on the agenda that I pulled off the agenda for today was to address checking in with the monitors so that we would have more accurate numbers. I need to massage that a little bit more. It wasn't ready for today, so we pulled it off. But that's something that's going to be on the agenda at the next meeting so that we can hopefully start getting better numbers for your activity and others.
And admittedly, we saw this coming. We knew when whoever made the decision, I'm not as up to date on what the board does versus what RCSC does, when they asked us not to check in. We kind of felt that coming, that we were getting set up for failure. But you pointed out the 694 members. I just want to point out, people use the courts who are not members. So we want to make sure all numbers.
Absolutely. And we look at the activity reports, everybody that checks in, we get it.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm.
Skaggs, 147048. First, I want to thank everybody there that is on the board for all the work you are putting in. And also, I'm a board member for the Pickleball Club, and I'm going to talk about checking in as well. We have to check in. I mean, what if I come in there and I'm going to do pickleball, and then I'm going to go to the pool, and then I'm going to shower, and then I'm going to go to the gym or whatever? Now you're missing out on numbers for those two activities.
You can check in and tell them you're going to use X, Y, and Z.
I'm just saying, if I come to play pickleball and don't plan on doing those other two activities, and then decide after, I'm not going to go back up to the desk and tell the lady or whoever is up there. You know, I'm just saying, it's a safety issue too, you know?
But that does skew the numbers. That's the problem. That's the problem.
What's
We need to have accurate numbers so we
Correct.
can make those good decisions.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we have to check in, so you know exactly who's there for what. And I don't see, you know, when we were doing the COVID, you know, just slipping our card under the light, that doesn't really affect the gal at the desk or the man. I mean, what do they put, pickleball or something? Before, they used to have to, you know, click the gun at it or something.
They asked, I mean, I know when I went to Mountain View, they still asked me what I was doing.
I'm just saying, you know, we were just sliding our card under. Before COVID, they used to use the scanner gun.
And they still did.
I know, but now I'm talking. Now it's, you know, it was up on the desk like this, and we just slid our number. That was easy. It didn't require them to do that. But anyway, I just want us to all check in. I think that we need to do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before I have you come up for the second time, is there anyone else that would like to speak for the first time?
My name is Julie Montague. My number is 153716. I moved to Sun City 3 years ago, and I discovered pickleball, and I just want to implore you to not get rid of the Mountain View courts, because I have made so many friends. I get the exercise. It means so much to so many of us, and it's so discouraging to see you all sit up there shaking your heads like that we're just up here complaining. We're not. It means a lot. I play with people who are in their 70s and 80s, and they love this sport. And as for going down to Mountain View, we play there all during the winter, and there was always a sign-up sheet there. So I don't understand also with the numbers you're saying. We would always write our number in, our name, and what sport, and check, and they would come and take all those papers. And every day I would look, and those sheets were filled, front and back. So look what happened to all those papers from these 2 years that I was playing down there.
We'll ask Chris to answer that.
Madam President, Board of Directors, whenever we have a sign-up sheet, whether it be Mountain View or at Sundial for the mini golf there, our staff input those each day. When they take them and bring them back, they do input them into the system. So we do see those within our
So
statistical
those are the numbers
counts.
that we get. All right, thank you, Chris.
Anyway, that's just is that I don't want to see those courts disappear. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Ed Dennis, 116313. Just a solution that you looking for data. I am president of a card club, don't have a permanent space. Our club purchased a scanner system that we have in our club that keeps accurate records of your attendance. So, you know, your club's got to do yourself a favor. You got to get this stuff. So when they ask for answers, you have it. You have the facts. You can show them. You know, it's a two-way street. They got a job to do. You have a job to do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Carl Coe, 126260. I've been a pickleball player now for 6 years, and for 3 years I've been playing at Mountain View. I've been playing the other 3 years before that over at Marinette. This is crucial to me. I'm 73 years old. I get my exercise, I work my brain. That's number one. Number two, we got a lot of winter visitors that are not here today. And if they were, you'd really have a handful, because those people are not able to speak. Mountain View is crucial. I live almost in the middle of the two recreation centers for pickleball. It's that crucial to everybody that plays pickleball. Pickleball is, yes, the fastest rising sport in the world. It's not just here in Arizona, it's in the world. They're even going to make it into the Olympics. So it's that important. And if somebody didn't read the paper here a couple of weeks ago, there were 4 major pages in there that described the pickleball. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you guys don't help get this settled now, you're going to be behind. You're going to be behind just like you are right now with the 12 years you've been trying to get this recreation center done. So, to me, I don't know why it's such a big deal to have the architects go up there and say, technically we can use this area for pickleball. Tennis even. I'll agree with the gentleman here a minute ago. He said he's seen people on them courts over there on tennis 5 times. We used to go over there and play pickleball on those courts. And then all of a sudden this fall, and starting in the summer until we got to the point that we're at now and it's too hot to play there, all of a sudden we had a mad rush of people over there playing tennis. I mean, it was vacant all the time. Look at the courts. So I'm just saying, if the architects could get together and kind of tentatively draw out whether they're going to keep the tennis courts, where they might be designated in that green area. Now, sorry I've been skipping around a little bit, and appreciate your work. And I've been on a few boards myself, and I know it's not an easy decision to make, but there's something that can be done. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, other member comments? First time?
Hi, Stella Van Ness, 116314. And having sat on that side of the table, I understand where you guys are coming from. And I was on that side of the table when we started Mountain View in 2017. So I understand where you're coming from. However, I'm not a pickleball player, I am not a tennis player, I am not involved in any of those clubs. However, I am aware from being on that side of the table, as well as anyone who knows me knows I'm a very strong advocate for clubs. I believe in clubs, and I believe Sun City needs clubs. But what is happening, and I encourage you to please, please make sure this happens, and I know, Dale, you pulled the motion. However, Aqua Fitness does not sign in, pickleball does not sign in, water volleyball does not sign in. So, and there's a number of other clubs who they sign in on the club rosters. However, those club rosters do not go to the facility attendants. So your numbers are skewed. You don't have an accurate number for who is actually using the facilities for those types of activities, because they consider themselves a club member, and club members don't sign in. And that is a problem when it comes to your numbers. So I really strongly encourage both the clubs as well as the board to make sure that those people are signed in so you have accurate numbers to deal with. Right now, you're dealing with pie in the sky numbers because you don't have the accurate information. I just encourage you to go ahead and do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stella. Couldn't agree with you more. Okay, anyone else, first time? Okay, floor is open.
Hi, Vic Hageman. 145711. Director Lair, I would really like to encourage you to expand that sign-in thing that you're going to be doing. And if I'm going to Marionette and I'm going to swim and I'm going to work out and I'm going to play pickleball, I mentioned all three things to the person so they can note it on the computer so that we have good numbers there. So we can massage that a little bit to make, and then send that information out to all of our homeowners that say this is the new sign-in procedure. Let's follow it. I think we can get better numbers just through that way. So I encourage you to work on that. Thank you. Secondly, utilization. You know, we mentioned some percentages on utilization. I like to see a utilization for basically all the clubs because we're talking about 37% for pickleball. Maybe 37% a high utilization for a lot of the things we do here in Sun City. We don't really know. So without having a comparison of all the other clubs and the activities that Sun City provides, what's the utilization, and then we can kind of compare and see, because 37% might be one of the higher ones because we have a lot of facilities in Sun City. So I'd like to see a comparison. Yes, ma'am.
The Long Range Planning Committee is looking at all activities. So golf, you know, shuffleboard, you name it, we're looking at it.
Do we have a forecast date when that might be published?
Well, yes, was when we're complete. I mean, I just passed out, we don't have everything done. We don't have line dancing done. We don't have, I think we've got Zumba tentatively done.
All right.
So,
well,
but,
again,
but to your point, you know, the golf numbers are higher than pickleball.
Of course, of course.
Well,
we have 7 golf courses here in Sun City. We have two areas where we play pickleball.
But we have 8. We have 8.
Oh, we have 8. Yeah, 5 and 3. You're right. I apologize. Second thing, last thing. Who is in charge of the Lakeview tennis court? Who's in charge of that? Well, I mean,
It's an RCSC.
For instance, I have.
It's an RCSC. It's on RCSC land.
There's a management person here who's in charge of the facilities and in charge of maintaining those courts. You are. There you are.
Wait, no.
Yeah, let
Jen.
For you. Okay, well, I have 32 seconds.
Okay, well, stop the clock so he gets his 30 seconds.
Yeah, stop it.
So what has happened at Lakeview, just so you know, matter of fact, I was talking to some of the tennis players during recess, and what's occurred is that Lakeview tennis courts are to the point that it's not where you just patch the cracks or do a little resurface. They need some serious attention and have. And the problem is there's no long-term plan for that area that includes tennis courts, and they're also facing the wrong way. So if you've ever played tennis there, you're playing looking into the sun. So there's kind of nothing good about the Lakeview tennis courts. But until the plan comes as to whether that's something that's going to remain, for us to spend the money to redo the tennis courts at Lakeview has not ever been directed to us. And so it isn't a case where we can go in and do some repair and maintenance and it's good to go. That's the situation with Lakeview tennis courts. It's nobody's fault, but there has been long time consideration of that's some of the prettiest property we have in Sun City, sitting on that park right there over those lagoons. And, you know, we have a warehouse and tennis courts, and, you know, mini golf gets a little section of that. So there's some thoughts about what that is to be long term. So we've been very careful, and we have been historically very careful not to spend money in areas where it may have big changes.
Okay.
Well, we don't have any money, Vic. We're not ready to get Lakeview moving. If you want anything done at Mountain View and the stuff with ADWR and the Viewpoint Lake, there's no money to get that going.
Lakeview Rec Center, we talk about just the Lakeview tennis courts.
No, you can't just talk about Lakeview tennis courts because it's got to be, because then we spend all the money on Lakeview tennis courts and then we dig them up 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later.
Right.
So it has to be an all-inclusive plan. And what's happened with Lakeview is, to be very frank, there's board members, I'm not talking about this board, I'm talking about 15 years of board, that think that Lakeview should remain pretty much as it is. It's got the iconic round center and that should stay. And there's board members that say that's a waste of space. We should put a big center in there. So, you know, everything changes of what's supposed to happen with Lakeview. But right now, these guys are dealing with Mountain View.
Okay.
And they're dealing with Viewpoint Lake, and they're dealing with ADWR regulations. So, sorry, but Lakeview's just not at the top of the agenda at the moment.
That's right. Okay, I'm going to stop because we're going to continue your time.
I didn't realize that it was a Lakeview, like a tear down Lakeview and build a whole new Lakeview. I didn't realize it was that type of thing. I thought, I saw the tennis courts, they need repair, let's repair them. We're going to eliminate some tennis courts at Mountain View, so let's put some tennis courts in at Lakeview. They're already there. And that's all I was going to say. So
I was going to say, anytime you want to make a donation to do that, step right up.
So what I'm hearing is, thank you, what I'm
Okay,
hearing is
all right,
Lakeview's
Vic,
on
we're
hold.
done. Okay, any other comments? Okay, yes.
Tracy Besselbarger, 116319. First of all, I want to thank you for your due diligence, everything you do. No one should threaten you, talk down to you, treat you like dirt, because they're not up there. They don't know what you deal with and what you have to deal with. That's number one. Number two, the people, the members, all you and us, need to take responsibility for ourselves. Get involved. Find out what it's all about. Don't just come and complain, because that's what we see here. I come all the time. I do miss some. I'm not saying I don't. I don't always speak. But if you're involved, you know what's going on. If you're here, you know what's going on. The people that come just to complain or throw something out at you, they need to be more involved. I have nothing against pickleball. I don't play. It may or may not be there. If it's high enough on Mountain View's list, it will be there. If tennis is higher, tennis will be there. But we're not talking about the third phase. We're talking about the first phase of 3 items being done at Mountain View. So people need to take a deep breath, like Dale says, calm down, and know that things will change as the future goes. But if we get it running, then we can move forward. If we don't, we're going to be stuck again, and things will change with the board and all. But again, I want to thank you all for so much and everything that you do. The facts are very important. Checking in, doing the numbers, that's club's responsibilities too. They can take the members and have them sign in and bring it to the office or what have you, so you can get legit right numbers. There's lots of things that can be done if we all work together. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tracy. Okay, at this time, we have board comments, and once again, I just want to remind you that we are limited to 3 minutes. Okay, Director Collins.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Going forward, we have, like was said, we have the lake, we have the golf courses. Those are capital projects. And if we have to do some of those, it will cut back on our funding towards Mountain View project. We also have a east-west maintenance facility out there I believe we're getting bids for. And right now, hopefully, the bids are going to be down, but with the price of steel, lumber, and everything else skyrocketing, you know, we may have to look at those bids and see if even that has to wait. Because we only have so much money, and if it comes down to, you know, we have to do what the ADR, we have to comply with them, because if we don't, we could get fines and be charged for water, which then those fines and stuff are going to come out of your dues. They're not going to come out of the PIF money.
Our annual assessment.
Yeah, your assessment, your annual assessment. It won't come out of PIF funds. So we have to place things in order so that we don't cost you money in the long run. So, and one thing in the past, we didn't have Mike in charge of the buildings and stuff. I would like to see him get more involved when we set up our budgets for estimating PIF projects, because that's his expertise. He knows more about what things cost, and I think we should involve him more in stuff like that. Thank you.
Okay, other board members? Director McAdam?
Madam President, I do just have a couple of questions, and one is simply, who actually sits down with the architect and talks with the architect and says, please make these adjustments? Bill, is that, Bill and Jan, is that you, or who, how does that process actually go?
Okay, you're running into your 3 minutes.
President, Board of Directors, Director McAdam. So the lead with respect to the interaction with CCBG is Mike. And then Jan and I have also been included in all of the proposals that you have seen at the board meetings. So the three of us have, and also Chris has been involved as well, given his history here as well. So that's been the interaction with CCBG.
Okay, is there any possibility that before we have a second reading on this, we might see some potentially sketched out plans for Phase 3 at Mountain View?
That's a decision that you have to make and direct us to do that, the board.
Okay. It just seems to me like even if it's not an absolute commitment, that might help the entire community to coalesce around an agreement. This is a really good thing to do. So I guess I would encourage us as a board to do that. The other thing is that, this statement that if, is pickleball being eliminated? Well, according to the plans that we have, there's no indication that it will be there. When the board was asked, can you commit to saying it will be there? The answer was no, we can't commit. We like pickleball, but we can't commit to that. That just leaves an awful lot of uncertainty, and I'm very, very much concerned about that, and I think that we could do some things to mitigate that uncertainty. So, Madam President, do you have a suggestion? Can we actually ask that be done before the next meeting so that we see a few things sketched out?
Well, you're asking me to make a motion, and we're past motions at this point, so that would have to be a motion at the next meeting. Mike? Yes.
Madam President, Board of Directors, here's my thoughts on that Phase 3. CCBG responds to requirements that you, the board, provided. That was that ad hoc committee list, and they did respond to it. So I think it's wrong to say, hey, why don't you guys dream up a bunch of stuff and show us? We, the board, or RCSC, should be giving them the requirements for what we want to see in Phase 3. End of statement.
Thank you. Okay, anything else, Karen?
Well, I guess I'm just asking myself, where do we go from here? I'm hearing you say that it's impossible to bring a motion and ask the board today to say that. Okay, I don't think I didn't speak for 3 minutes.
I'm sorry. Anyone else?
Yes, Madam President.
Yes, Director Akins.
Once again, I want to reiterate that we are not against pickleball, and I've said that I have played pickleball in the past. However, I do like racquetball better than pickleball because I kind of grew up with racquetball. But I'm scheduled to have a total knee replacement in July, the end of July. And until I get my knees redone, I'm going to get back into pickleball because I do like the sport and I am very supportive of it. It took me a while to get up the nerve to have it done. Then when I did, COVID hit, and now they put me off until this summer. So I'm going to start with the right knee, and then I'll go to the left knee, and by then I'll be back into hopefully playing pickleball again. So yes, I am extremely supportive of it.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yes, Madam
Okay.
President?
Yes.
I do have a question about a statement that was made that if pickleball is eliminated at Mountain View, we will look for other solutions. Is there anyone who can tell me what some of those potential solutions might be? Anyone on the board or on the management team?
It would be time, it would be a time that they would have to talk, and as I talked to the pickleball president, as he knows Chris and he knows Jan and Bill, that he would deal with them, talk with them, see if we can get some solutions, and then talk to us as well. Okay. All right, our next meeting is June 24th, 2021, 9 o'clock here in the auditorium. I'm asking for a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Secretary Lair, second by Director Collins. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
You're out of order.
This is a copyrighted production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.